Thank you for this opportunity. The main thing I can say about myself is the fact that I have a need to serve and have served children, families, and the community, and I've been doing that all my entire life. In addition to being a former public educator, I've also been working in churches since I was 18 years old. And being part here in Baldwin County. My first church was at Magnolia Springs back when I was in college, Pleasant View, Friendship. And now last year, 10 years, I've been serving at Oyster Bay Baptist Church as a worship leader and working with children. Ever since I came back in 1997 to Foley Elementary School, I immediately became engaged in the community, loving the idea that I was working in the same community and that I was living in, first of all, working with the Chamber of Commerce, being on the board and volunteering with them, but also for the Chamber Foundation, working on that board and also volunteering as well. So that's how that began, working, getting community engaged with our school, not only our school, but the high school and middle schools as well, because we're all, in Foley, we're considered to be one school. So began that service. As needs became aware, we began working other projects. 11 years ago, I developed a program along with some other churches, and it's called Turkey Takeout, in which we have worked to feed the needy, the counselors and all this in the schools from Rossington all the way down to Gulf Shores, identify families that are in great need. And every Thanksgiving we provide groceries and a complete Thanksgiving meal. We've been doing that for 11 years. This last year we fed over 500 families, about 2,000 people. And all those were vested by those counselors. And that's just out of the need of realizing that children come to school hungry, and if there's anything that we can do to do that as well. In addition to that, I've been working with the Education Coalition. We developed a faith-based initiative, which we're developing partnerships between the churches and the schools from Bay Minette all the way down at that point in Gulf Shores before we closed it prior to the COVID. About 68 to 70 partnerships. Every school had at least two partners, two churches. We first met with the principals and found out what their needs were, and then we went out and found churches and see if they were interested in participating. Then we sat down together and developed a formal partnership, working together, whether it be volunteering, providing volunteers, or providing resources in support of those schools, with the idea that schools needed volunteers at that time, and churches had a large number of folks who were retired who are available during the day, because the day is long past when parents who come are even available to come to school and volunteer. And so that was that part. So we've helped develop partnerships with elementary, middle, and high schools throughout Baldwin County. Became interested in the school board because, once again, I'm not done yet serving. And I'm not done yet working. Feeling our ministry is also in education. It always has been, being able to touch lives and meet needs. I think I do a really good job of collaborating with the community and with parents and organizations in meeting whatever needs they are. And I think I have a lot to offer, continue to offer here to the system.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Hi, Dr. Lawrence.
Hi.
My name is Andrea Lindsay. Nice to meet you. So I understand that you want to just be on the board to help kids further and continue doing that. But is there a particular issue that might motivate you to want to be on the board? Just one particular issue?
Sorry. We have fixed our technical difficulties, so I want to let you know that we are live streaming.
Okay, great. One particular issue, well, I think readiness and getting children ready for school is a big need. When I was principal at Foley Elementary, I was there for 21 years. And what we're realizing, we have large numbers of students coming to school a year or two behind. And we always had difficulty when they were behind in school trying to find the opportunity to catch up, because we found out that the target was always moving away from the children. So as we're testing children going into kindergarten, those very same students, many of those same students were still behind by the time they left us. So supporting the efforts that the state and the county have already done in regards to getting children ready for school, not only providing additional programs within the school for pre-K programs, but also reaching into the community, working with those daycare programs and getting those children ready doing workshops with them and saying, hey, these are the needs these children have to be ready for kindergarten and school, and these are things we can work with you on. Would you be willing to work with us? Those kind of things wouldn't necessarily cost money, but an opportunity to provide professional development for those families. But then also getting with the parents, getting information out to the parents, things that they can do even before they even go into a pre-K program, and recognize these things you can do even when the child is 1, 2, 3, and 4. Getting information out to the pediatricians, they can in turn get it out to the parents from day 1 when they're born. The idea of reading to your child, even at 1 month old, getting them comfortable with the idea, but doing those things to get them ready. Because many of the children, even though they start in kindergarten, they're still behind all throughout school. So that's one of the things that I feel strongly about. Another thing I feel strongly about it, I took it on myself too, because I've always been elementary based, but to learn about middle and high school, serving I went out and subbed it after I retired in middle and high school, and I have a greater appreciation for middle school teachers than I ever had before. God bless them. I thought kindergarten was hard, but they're seeing their issues that they have with students being motivated. And finding ways, that's their biggest problem. Students are just not motivated to learn, not interested in anything, and more interested in looking at the cell phone and not paying attention or doing those kind of things than learning, and the frustration that the teachers have to get them. So there's another thing that whatever we would like to do, how we can increase student motivation to help those students to achieve the goals that we have as a system, to have them career ready. If they're not paying attention in class, they could care less, they're not going to be ready. No matter how great a teacher is, they're just not going to learn as well.
Thank you so much.
Dr. Lawrence, I'm sure you've had plenty of experience with this next question. In your tenure as a teacher, that me?
There's still a lot of feedback in it.
As a teacher, as an administrator, and whatever, but here's one for you. How would you respond to a community member or a special interest group, and there's some out there, you know that, who calls about a school-related matter? How would you handle that? How would you relate?
Well, I would listen to their issues, but then I would pass that immediately on to the school system, the superintendent and his people, and let them be aware of the concerns that they have. Because my job is not to be the administrator. My job is to listen and let them know that I'm listening, and then we'll work together to get the information to the people who need to get it, and to help them to achieve whatever concern that they have, at least get an answer. They may not like the answer, but at least we're going to address it. I think that one of the biggest jobs that we have, that board members have, is to be the ears for the community and get that information to those proper, but in reverse, also being the voice of the school system as well, sharing with them what's being done, what's planned in the future, so that they may not have a need to, by giving the proper information, they might have the need to get concerned because, hey, the system's already taken care of that. I don't need to be worried about that. I'm really concerned about, the recent things, the surprises that we had with Orange Beach pulling out. That should have never happened. We shouldn't have been surprised with that, and getting information to them and getting information from them, so that we might have been able to do a better job of keeping them on board. If I'm a person that would be selected for this district, I guarantee you that I won't be out in the community. My first thing is going to be becoming a member of every PTO and being a volunteer and being out there and having my ears open, but being seen and being aware of what's going on and sharing the information with any opportunity that I can. And then as I hear things, passing that up the line.
Hey.
Hey, Bill. Go Mobile College Rams. I remember you from those days. One of the things that took me a little bit of time to learn after I became a board member and started serving on the board was the board is a team. We're not individual components. We have to work as a team. How have you worked as part of a team in the past, and what do you think is the biggest challenge to teamwork?
Foundation and the chamber, working with all of the different churches and organizations with Turkey Takeout, and then working with the coalition. All those are team efforts, and we've developed some great teams. It's always been amazing how God has provided the right people at the right time to do the right thing. and seeking out those folks and getting the right people to work together. I think the key to working with a team is being able to listen and to try to understand where the other person's coming from, and being able to just to provide that give and take. Communication is the key for any team to work together. I think that I understand that the board, being a member of the board is not only representing your district, but also working together for the common good of the entire county. And we all have those same goals in mind. The mission and vision of the system is that all children in Baldwin County find success once leaving high school, that all children are ready for that, be successful in life. And even though we may come from different, there are differences between the Eastern Shore and the Alberta community in some ways, but there's a lot of commonality. The parents want the best for their children, whatever that best may be. Some parents believe that the best way to go is to college. Some folks think you go out and go vocational piece, but they always want the best. They want their children to be happy, they want their children to be ready, and they want their children to be successful in whatever the endeavor to be. And so sometimes I may have a difference in opinion, but I have to respect the other person's opinion and work with them and work together to come up with what's best for all children, not just for me.
That means perfectly my last question.
Yes, sir.
I can almost guarantee somewhere along the way, the board is going to make a decision that you disagree with. How are you going to do it?
Once the board votes, that's the way it is. If you watch, it's wonderful when everybody's unanimous, but there are always been one or two that disagree. But once the vote is done, you have to respect that piece and respect that and support the decisions that the group has made. Once it's done, and you have to set that aside.
Dr. Lawrence, I have spent the last several years being actively involved in advocacy with many of our legislators here in the county and at the state level. What responsibilities do you believe board members have regarding advocacy?
We need on local, state, and national levels, we need to be seeking support and for those things that we believe in. You'll see an example of mine where I was an advocate for our Hispanic population. I went out, and we actually went to Washington, D.C. and spoke on behalf of them. We went to federal. I have no problem defending our children, but asking for also support and helping for children, whatever that need may be, whether it be legislative support, whether it be business support, whatever. I'm very comfortable in going out and doing those kinds of things, but we have to be an advocate of the children. If we're not an advocate, we shouldn't be in the business that we are. We have to be that person for them. Parents don't have that opportunity. They don't have that freedom to be able to do that. But as a board member, we have to get out there wherever it is and fight for the best interest of all the children, whatever that may be.
Thank you. Mr. Meyer, did you want to?
Yeah. Bill, I appreciate you applying
Yes, sir.
this position, this blanket position, talking about the kids, having a talk.
Yes.
Exactly what we're talking about. I'd always been in high school, landing in middle school. I thought, what in the world am I doing? But it kind of grew on me.
Yes, sir.
It's a different age and a different type of kid. But the thing about it, out of all the things, paying kids for school, getting ready, pre-K program is probably the most important.
Yes, sir.
You throw millions of dollars, reading programs and all this. You better build a foundation first.
Absolutely.
Or it's not gonna happen. And I don't know, I get so frustrated with the state. When we have items that come to the board, I vote no on some things, and, board members may feel bad, hard at me about it, but hey, that's the way I feel. The next day, the sun's coming up, I'm through, I'm past, I'm gone.
Yes, sir.
We go to the next chapter, whatever that might be. In the end, working with 7 members or 6, you would be one of us.
Yes, sir.
If you select, sometimes you make choices that aren't very popular. You think, but I do what I know in my heart is right. And if I feel that way, I'm gonna vote. And if I'm wrong, I'm man enough to admit it. But, I appreciate you applying
disappointed we didn't have three. You know, I would have thought we'd have had more hits.
Yes, sir.
But, you know, it is what it is in our society today, but I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
I didn't know you. I knew you were totally elementary, but I've never met you. Glad you're here.
Thank you, sir.
Hey, I'm gonna tag on to that if I may. That wasn't a question, that was an editorial statement, right? Love you, man. It was what I wanted to say. I love it, man. Say what you want to say. I love that. But this agenda tonight and every meeting we have is the superintendent's agenda. That's how that works, and that's a good way for it to work. And believe it or not, there may be times when you disagree with a proposal from the superintendent. How do you handle that?
Get more information. I think there's no disagreement can not be resolved without getting more information. After the more information, and if I find that the other board members are in favor of it, I don't want to hear what they're, and then we'll support whatever the majority of the board piece go, and I'll drop it. Just as Mr. Myrick said, I'm done with it. I'll say my piece, and I'll explain why I'm opposed to it. But once the board votes, then I'm supporting the decision that's made, and that's it. I understand that my job as a board member is not to micromanage or to be involved. My job is to look at what is being presented by the superintendent and approve or disapprove, and then support once the decision's been made.
It's very funny, I think, sometimes when people come to you and say, because someone said the same to me, you know, you should be on the board. It's only a meeting once a month. You know, how much time? It doesn't take very much time. And I thought, well, I've been in board meetings. Don't tell me that. But that is the characterization that is publicly out there. How hard can it be to be on a board? You only meet once a month. You have a work session, you have a board meeting, you're done. I will tell you that after my experience on this board, regardless of what I had when I came to the board, bar that, that's not necessarily the case. It takes a great deal of time. We read documents that are pages and pages and multiple pages long. We prepare for meetings. We attend school events in the areas that we represent, and sometimes we are in all areas, depending on the kind of presentation or our availability of being there. And there is a flip side to that. Sometimes we're in personnel hearings, and we sit on this side of the table and we listen to someone else's side of a particular issue. That calls for a very large commitment. What are you prepared to make that commitment, and to what extent do you understand this is really more than a work session and a board meeting a month?
To make the commitment. I'm retired. I work. The only thing that I'm committed to is I work Wednesdays and Sundays at a church. It's Wednesday nights and Sunday day. And then whatever I want to do in the meantime is part of that ministry. That's the only commitment I have. So in regards to time and effort, I have the time, and I'm willing to commit the time to do the best that I can do to represent not only the district, but also to do the best I can do as a board member in support of whatever is asked of me to do.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
So, with all this discussion, what do you see as the primary job or work of the board? Our primary work, what is that? What do you see as our primary work?
The first, the main job of the board is to listen to the policies and recommendations of the superintendent, to study them, to discuss them, and to approve or disapprove, and then support the system once those decisions have been made. That's the primary. And then to be the voice for the system once those decisions have been made, to gain support for the system and be a good representative of the entire county, to work together for the betterment of the children.
Last question. How important is it to you that the board and the superintendent have a trusting relationship?
Without trust, you have nothing. They have to trust, the superintendent has to trust us, and what we tell him is true. We have to trust him on what he's telling us is the truth, and then we act upon that. And the best way we get trust is to communicate. If we hear something, we go immediately to the source. If I hear, which is a scriptural piece anyway. If I find that something's bothering me, I'm going to go to the source and work it out. Say, hey, I heard this. Tell me about it. Vice versa, I'm wide open. I'm arms open wide. Folks have known me. Here I am. Ask me. I don't have anything to hide. And that's how I'll work with everyone that, if I'm selected here, that's how I'll work with folks. Of course, not knowing me, I'll have to earn that trust. But I think my reputation, folks, just if you ask anybody in the community, pretty much you see what you get.
Thank you. Now that we're finished, do you have we've got about 2-3 minutes left. Is there anything that you would like for us to know that we haven't already heard from you or haven't already discussed?
No, but I do want to brag for a moment on somebody that works for the system. I was at a funeral today for Leland Stewart, a little 6-year-old boy. And one of our teachers got and spoke. She was his homebound teacher, based out of, I believe, Magnolia School. And as she spoke, I was thinking about this meeting, the fact that our strength as a system, it all boils down to that teacher and that child, that relationship that they have. And she, from her heart, broke down and cried for that boy, and sharing with us how she had learned so much more from that child than he ever learned from her. And for everything that we do as a board, that's what we've got to make happen. We have got to provide the resources and help the superintendent select and the principals to select the best teachers that will love and care for those children and support them any way that we can. Because when it all boils down to it, it's that relationship. The children will learn if they know that that teacher loves them. And today I saw that love, the strongest that I've ever represented, and we should be proud of. Sir? Yes, it is. So, anyway, so thank you for this opportunity.
Well, thank you for your interest, and thank you for being here. We do still have 2 more interviews and then a board meeting to take care of some business, so you do not have to stay if you do not want to.
Okay.
It is completely up to you, but we will make a decision tonight, and if you choose not to stay, I'll give you a call.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you so
Appreciate
much.
it.
Yes. Oh, that's fine. That's fine. Well, if y'all are not aware of the student that he was talking about. Yeah.
Was he
No, the little Stewart boy, Leland Stewart, had Minks disease. The only child in the state of Alabama.
Your mic is on. Cecil's mic is on. Thank you. All right. We often have technical difficulties, so we just roll with it. Very good. Well, welcome, Ms. Van Bremer. It is nice to have you here. We want to thank you for your interest in serving the Board of Education. I do want to say before we get started that we are live streaming, so while the camera won't be able to see you, it will pick up your voice and your answers. So just let everybody know ahead of time. We are going to interview for about 20-25 minutes, and then we'll go from there. I'm going to set this timer right here again, and while I'm doing that, Ms. Dawson, if you want to go ahead and get started with your first question.
I will. And thank you. And appreciate, it will be.
Anytime you talk, I'll make sure.
Good evening, and thank you for your willingness to serve. My first question is just sort of, we have the resume, so we've read everything that you've included, but just to give you a few minutes to tell us a little bit about yourself and anything other that you would like for us to know and understand as we proceed.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to come here tonight and speak to everybody. As you can see on my resume, I have some experience in education. I was a preschool teacher for quite a long time at a church preschool, and that's really where I realized how much I loved kids. I had my own kids, and I wanted to get a job where I could take them with me, and so the preschool just sort of fell into my lap, and what a joy it was. I loved just about every minute of every day being with those kids, and that helped me transition as my kids got older, and I have 2 older stepchildren as well. I was able to be really involved in the schools and find so much joy in that. I've never really pursued any kind of position like this because I wanted to give my kids some independence while they were in school. I was involved, but I tried to keep a little step back. When my daughter went to college, she goes to Spring Hill College in Mobile. She is my youngest. I realized that I could really do some things that I have wanted to do, and the school board being one of them. And it seemed like in the blink of an eye there was an open position, and I thought, well, here we go. This might be an opportunity for me to be involved in schools in a deeper level that won't embarrass my kids and won't be smothering them either. That they, now that they have all graduated from public schools, they can go and do their thing without their mom right in their face. But my husband and I do live in Alberta. We have about 4 acres. My stepdaughter lives next door to us, and between us and my stepdaughter, we've got horses and dogs and cats and goats and geese and all kinds of animals. It's definitely a rural lifestyle, which we really enjoy. And my full-time job is as the pastor of the Presbyterian Church down in Orange Beach, and that is also a joy and a calling. When I resigned from the preschool, I thought I will never find a job I love as much as this. And then the full-time ministry has just been equally joyful in a different kind of way. So that's what I do when I'm not involved in school stuff, is I am working as a pastor and figuring out how I'm now also a full-time wife and no longer a full-time mom. It's been a transition.
So it looks like you've had a lot of experience with the public schools and you've raised children in the public schools. So doing that, sometimes you always see something that you think might be better or something like that. Is there any particular issue that might motivate you to serve on the board? Or
That's a good question.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's one issue that really is driving me to want to do this. I think sort of the gimme answer is the problems that all schools face these days that are in the national spotlight. There's obviously drug issues. The older you get, the more they are. There are issues with bullying in all of the schools, and those have been really highlighted lately. And the 4 children that I helped raise and that were mine that have gone through the schools, they've had minor issues here and there, but they're very different children, so they had different issues, and I was able to find the value in meeting with teachers and meeting with administrators and just making a phone call to kind of address those issues. And for the most part, I've found teachers and administrators all really receptive to at least having a conversation about what's going on. So I don't know if I would say that there's one issue so much as I would say I love to present the solution. When I hear other parents saying, well, this happened to my child, or I don't like this teacher because, I'll say, they're really open to communication. If you'll just talk to them, that might find a solution. So I guess communication might be not a problem, but the one thing I'd like to put forward.
Okay, thank you.
My question may be a little redundant. You may have just answered it, but and I'm sure everything has always gone smoothly and amicable at the fire department and at church.
Oh, sure,
So
all the
there's
time.
never been any issues or problems that people would come to you, but school board may be a bit different there. But how would you respond to a community member or a special interest group who calls about a school-related matter? When I first thought of that, I'm thinking, I don't know why I went negative. It doesn't have to be a negative. It could be a positive. But how would you respond when someone would come to you with a school board issue?
Well, unfortunately, it is most often negative things that
Yes.
we're going to talk about instead of positive things, and I wish that weren't the case, but it often is. And that's happened, when as you talk with other parents and other, people that you meet when your kids are friends or you're on the ball field. And usually, I think you're right. I think I may have answered that question as I say, call the school. I mean, you can complain to me all you want, but there's nothing I can do. You got to talk to whatever is going on. And as a school board member, I'm assuming that I would have not only friends coming to me, but people I've never met before, and I don't know their stories. So, you certainly can't jump to conclusions. You always know you're hearing only one side of things. And so I would also encourage that person and ask them, what have you done so far? Have you talked to the teacher? Have you talked to an administrator? Have you talked to the counselor? Have you talked to your child? Just to try to keep those lines of communication open. Complaining doesn't solve anything, but sitting down and talking together and collaborating, that solves problems. So if anybody who came to me, that would always be my first go-to is, see where the problem is and talk to that person.
Very good. Thank you.
Mike Johnson here. Thank you so much for taking the time to come out. Thank you so much for your interest in this position.
Thank you.
This school board is made up of 6 different individuals, 6 very different individuals currently, who work together as a team. It's important to us that whoever we select to become a member of this team also understands the importance of teamwork. What have you done as far as teamwork is concerned in the past?
In the Presbyterian Church, the church is run by a governing board called the Session, and it is made up of varying members that are elected by the congregation. And because it is the congregation that elects them, not the pastor who handpicks anybody, we often get a variety of people, diverse ideas and faith backgrounds even, and to all work together. And I have learned over the years that what is important is not necessarily that we agree. What is important is that we can come to a consensus for the good of the church. And I think that would also serve a school board, that we would come to a consensus for the good of the students. And I've also learned the importance that once the vote has been taken, once the meeting is over, you exit with a united front, so that you say, this is the decision that we made and we stand by it, so that it's not coming out fractured or you don't continue any kind of division. And sometimes that's hard work. Many times it's very easy. The solution seems obvious and everybody's in agreement, but it can be difficult. It's just so important for the good of the body to come out united and in agreement with the decision, whether you agree with it in the beginning or not.
That was such an incredibly good answer that you have answered the next question I was going to ask. You knew if something happened that you didn't agree with. So thank you.
I appreciate you coming out.
Thank you.
You
very well, especially, you know, if you disagree with something, how you handle the conflict, or if it's called a conflict, it's disagreement. I might not see it the same way, but you answered that very well. That's the way it has to be. And I've been noticed a lot of things, but when it's over, it's over. And the majority wins. That's the way it's supposed to be.
Right.
And, you know, I'm not trying to badger somebody because they didn't agree with you, but move on. So I appreciate your answer. That was appropriate.
Thank you.
All right. So over the last couple of years, I've spent a lot of time advocating at the county and the state level. And so my question to you is, what do you see, how do you see the importance of advocacy as a school board member?
I mean, students need that advocate. All students do, from the, you know, most popular athlete down to the child that seems like they don't get noticed. And they need that advocacy at multiple levels, but especially when it comes to the state level. You know, this is like all states. There's a lot of schools, there's a lot of issues, there's a lot of students, there's a huge budget, there's never enough money. And so, you know, you're dealing with all of these things, and to be a voice and an advocate for the local schools, you've got to have that. You know, unfortunately, sometimes the loudest person wins. And while I'm not suggesting we just try to be louder, you know, you definitely want your voice to be heard. And I have found that in my life, there were times when I would not have spoken up for myself because I didn't want to make waves or I didn't want to be controversial. But when it comes to my kids, boy, I found a voice pretty quickly. And I think that that's sort of a parental instinct. But I think it should be a school board member instinct to just be fiercely protective of our schools and our children. And if that means being an advocate at any level, county or state or national, I think we need to make our voices heard.
Thank you.
I'm not sure how it works in the session in the church as far as an agenda for a meeting. I don't know if you would establish that, or if the elected chair would do that.
I am the pastor of a church, is the moderator of the session, so that would be me, and I create the agenda. And we have a clerk of session who produces the minutes, and we create a packet together that we then send out to all the members of session. But I usually create the agenda early and send it out and say, what else do we need to add, so I can make sure.
You always agree with your agenda, I'm sure of that.
There are times when somebody asks me to add something, and I say, okay.
Yeah. Well, the way
yes.
it works here, the agenda for tonight's meeting and every meeting we have is the superintendent's agenda. And believe it or not, there are sometimes items that a board member may disagree with a proposal that he has that's going to be discussed. How would you handle that?
Having met our superintendent numerous times and had conversations with him both in person and in email, I trust him to run our schools, and I think any superintendent that is hired should be trusted to run the schools. And unless there are issues that come up where we feel, perhaps there needs to be something different happening here, whether I agree with it or not, I would hope to look at it with school board eyes and say, well, there's a reason he wants it on the agenda. I'm going to trust him to do that. And certainly if I felt otherwise, I would be comfortable asking him about it. But I'm a big believer in you trust the people you hire unless they give you some reason otherwise.
Well, one beautiful thing about that, if you do have a question, a disagreement or whatever, I have found you can go to him and have a really good discussion. I mean, it's on the table.
Yes, he has always been very responsive to me as a parent anytime I've been in touch with him.
Yeah, so that works out well. Thank you. Thank you.
School board service actually takes up a little more time than people sometimes advertise that it does. There's only one meeting a month, a work session and then a board meeting. But actually, in between those times, with superintendent preparing agendas, as you talk about, there are multiple items that need to be studied. There are long pages of materials that need to be read and prepared for. whether or not you have questions and you call, or you write those questions down and you come to the meeting. It also involves balancing your schedule sometimes when we have special board meetings that are called for, particular reasons. So how do you feel about your commitment to that flexibility of being able to adjust schedules and come to meetings and being committed to the reading and to the studying and to the being prepared for those materials?
That was my biggest concern. That was my first question is, what is the time commitment on this? Because I don't want to do something and make a commitment if I then will not have the time. I spoke with a former board member and asked her, really what's involved here. And so we had a really good, frank talk about it. I'm very fortunate that in my work at the church, my schedule is very flexible. That was wonderful as my kids were in school and I was able to take time off to go to various things. When I talked to my husband about it, he kind of laughed and he said, well, you're always at a school function anyway. And he's right. I enjoy doing school things. I enjoy going to the sporting events and those kinds of things. Time is always difficult to manage these days. It seems like our schedules are getting more and more packed. So I've learned, it's taken me a long time, but I've learned how to prioritize so that I can get the things done that are important and I can let the things go that are not. And something like a school board position would certainly rank up at the top of importance.
So I wanted to ask you, what do you see as the primary work of the board, in your opinion?
The primary work of the board would be visioning, advocating for the students. I would imagine budget work, creating policy, and supporting the teachers and administrators and superintendent, approving personnel, and other duties as assigned.
Sounds good. Thank you.
That was great. You answered my second question a minute ago when you talked about having trust with the superintendent. I think that is something that is key to a good board superintendent relationship, is the trust that you have with each other. Trust that the superintendent is doing his job, and in turn the superintendent has to trust his board that we're doing what we're supposed to be doing and not meddling in things we're not supposed to be doing. So you've really answered my question, and board, I hope you'll forgive me, but I am going to ask one additional question that's not on our list, but something that has kind of come up. Your role as the pastor, and sometimes having to sit back and understand that, yes, my everyday job, I guess, as a pastor sometimes has to be set aside, and my role as the school board and the rules and the policies that we have to follow sometimes conflict. And so how will you handle that if you're chosen in this role?
Well, the role of a school board member is to be one part of a whole team, and it's not about my personal spiritual beliefs, political beliefs, personal beliefs, background. It's just not about me. So I'm a big believer that people of all faiths should have the opportunity to practice and believe in their faiths, and I include that in the students. I would not want to have this role as a pastor. I would like to have this role as a parent and a grandparent and a citizen and an active member of a community that is fed by all of these children that we're raising.
Hey, may I tag onto that, please? I know as a pastor of a church, as a mom, as someone sitting over there looking at us, we're about to be evaluated. And I guess it's self-evaluation, I'm not sure about that, but we're about to be evaluated. So I'd love to hear, what would the attributes, the qualities, and the behaviors should a school board member have?
Oh, I can answer this because I've had conversations with school board members. I've probably emailed everybody that I'm looking at right now at some point, if you'd like to search back in your emails.
I remember well.
I would like a school board member to be somebody who is open-hearted and open-minded, who will listen, and again, not necessarily be in agreement, but at least hear what the parents have to say. And I think it's also, I would appreciate it if a school board member could, as they're hearing from parents, possibly change their mind on things. You know, the church is plagued with, we've always done it that way. And schools can be too. We've always done it this way. Well, you know, parents are saying this, and we're watching children saying, you know, doing this. Maybe we need to have a fresh vision or do a new thing. So for me, a good attributes of a school board member would be the ability to listen and grow together and maybe shake things up if that's what's needed.
Thank you.
Very good. Okay, we do just have a few more minutes, so I want to give you an opportunity to say anything or share anything that we haven't already discussed, something that you'd want us to know.
Oh, goodness. I guess what I would want you to know is how much I love the Baldwin County Public Schools. With all my kids growing up in there, I've had kids in Alberta. My youngest was in the first graduating class of the high school. My older three all graduated from Foley, so I've had experience with some different public schools. I have grandkids who go to Silver Hill, and I've just so thoroughly enjoyed having my children in these schools. The teachers have been amazing. The administrators have been wonderful. I have felt that my kids were loved and cared about the entire time, even when they got in trouble. And so that really, you know, if you ask me why I'm here, it's not for a political reason or a self-serving reason. It's because I believe so passionately that we need to continue the way the schools are going.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here, and thank you for your time. Thank you for your flexibility when trying to get all this scheduled. I know there was an issue, and so I want to thank you for your flexibility and working with us. We do have another interview, and then we have a board meeting to take care of some business. So you do not have to stay if you do not want to. When we get finished with everything, I will be glad to give you a call and let you know if you were selected.
Thank
if you would
you.
like to not, if you would like to go home.
I'm about to go to Georgia, where my
Yes.
daughter is playing in a conference tournament. So I have a ball game to get to.
Well, I hope you enjoy that, and you'll be hearing from me shortly.
Thank you very much. I
Thank
appreciate
you.
it. Thank you all.
Hello, Mr. Werner. Thank you for being here with us this afternoon. We are going to start this last interview. We will have about 25 minutes. We're all going to ask a couple of questions. I'm going to have my timer here. I'm not texting, I promise. I am paying attention. But with that, and before we get started, I do want you to know that we are live streaming. So while the camera won't pick up your face, it does pick up your voice.
Okay.
So just want you to know that this is going out to everyone listening. So, Ms. Dawson, with that?
Thank you.
The background and everything, but what I would like to give you a few moments at the very beginning to just tell us a little bit about yourself and that you would like to add to, or anything you would like to tell us.
Okay. Well, I was born and raised in Alberta, so absolutely love that community and have my entire life. Grew up going through the school system there, Alberta Elementary, Alberta Middle. At that time, we had to go to Foley High School, so you can imagine how excited I was when we did get a high school in Alberta. So anyway, this position appealed to me because it gives a voice to Alberta from a native Albertian, and it's something that we haven't always had in our community. So that's kind of what drew me to this. Personal side, husband, father, I've got 3 kids. They're all in the school system in Alberta schools right now. I've got 2 in the elementary school and 1 in the high school. So I'm working full-time along with this. I work for a company called Irrigation Components. I'm in sales, and it's selling irrigation parts to irrigation dealers across the Southeast. I'm very active in my church. I think I put that in the resume there, so that's also a very big part of my life. Another thing that kind of drew me to this was we're already doing a lot of serving in the community, so I saw this as another good opportunity to serve my community by joining the board. Mm-hmm.
Well, is there a particular issue that motivates you to be a board member, or is it just you just love kids?
I like the idea of being a voice for the parents, the teachers, the faculty, the students. I like the idea of the ability to be more involved in the school and just kind of to represent them as best I can. So I'm already there quite a bit, with kids in the school. We're constantly at sporting events and helping with teacher appreciation and that kind of stuff. So we're already there, so I might as well take that opportunity to listen to their concerns and bring those back to the board.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, I know you're plugged into the Alberta community, have been all your life, as you said, and right in the heart of this is this district, and so everybody down there knows you. But the question is, how would you respond to a community member? And maybe there's somebody that don't know you, that doesn't know you, but or a special interest group who calls you about a school board issue, and that could be a positive or a negative issue. But how would you go about responding to someone who calls on you?
I think I would start with asking who they've talked to already. If there's on a negative side, if there's an issue with, say, a teacher, administrator, or the board in general, have you reached out? And if you've not, maybe we could do that and feel free to copy me on your correspondence, and then we can kind of take it from there. If I understand it correctly, as a board member, I'm not determining what's coming to the board. I'm giving my opinion, and then Mr. Tyler actually brings things to the board for us to vote on. So I think the proper channels would be, let's talk to who the concern is with. I'll be a voice for you. I'm right there with you, right beside you, but let's go to that together.
Good, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. I enjoyed reading your resume, War Eagle.
War Eagle. I got to be careful of that. That cuts out half the voters, doesn't it?
I see nothing wrong with that whatsoever, I'm just saying. And I like a man with a beard.
I didn't mean to bring up a controversial issue, but I'm just going to say this. This school board is a team. We have to work together. We're individuals, but we have to work together as a team to get the things accomplished that need to be done. What have you done in your past working as a team? How does the importance of teamwork, what role does that play?
Teamwork is huge. So in all the other aspects of my life, I'm involved in teams, whether it be at church. We're a team of deacons. We're making decisions together. We have kind of the, what do they call it, 80-100 rule, where we want 100% of the members, 80% on board kind of thing. So we've dealt with that. Through work, I am one of 5 other regional managers. We're constantly working as a team, running things by each other. We're constantly, looking to each other to not just, affirm our opinions, but to gather all the opinions, and so we can make a good, educated judgment call on what we decide to do there. So it's something that's a part of my everyday life already. So I think bringing it to this board will be an easy transition.
I can guarantee in the future, if you're selected to this board, somewhere along the line, this team is going to make a decision that you don't agree with. How will you handle it?
I think I'll voice my objection. I'll voice my reasons for that objection and let it be heard. I'm certainly not going to keep it to myself, because that's then shame on me. And then once it's heard, if the majority of the board decides to go a different direction, then I'm on board with that decision at that point, because we would be one board, and we need to approach the public as a unified board. So as long as my objection was made known, after that, once the decision is made, then I'm on board with that decision. I wouldn't go out afterwards claiming how I objected to that decision. No, as a board, we made the decision, and so I would stand behind it.
Appreciate you being here. The questions been asked, kind of raw. I know you talking about losing, getting all the out of order.
Yeah, thank you.
War Eagle. So for the past couple of years, I've been very involved with advocacy across the state and at the local level. So my question is, how important do you feel advocacy is as a board member?
I think it's very important. I mean, like I said at the beginning, I want to be a voice for the faculty, the teachers, the students. So I want to be their advocate. I think that's the whole point of taking on this position. It's not my voice. I'm not here to let my voice be heard. I'm here to let the community's voice be heard. And that's everything from the student all the way up to the principals and everyone in between.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Did you want to ask me?
This may be redundant because you kind of answered this already in that first question that I had. But this agenda for tonight's meeting, and every agenda we have when we meet, special meetings or whatever meeting it might be, it's the superintendent's agenda. Puts a lot of time and effort into this agenda, and believe it or not, there may be times when there's something on this agenda that you might not agree with. That happens sometimes, one of the proposals, but how would you handle that?
Well, at that point, I assume you're talking about once we're at the board meeting and we're going through the agenda and there's
Well, you don't necessarily have to wait till at the board meeting, because you'll get this a few days later, but if there's some proposal on there that
Yes.
you have grief with, what would you do about that?
Well, if there's an opportunity to talk to the entire board about my disagreement, that's what I would do. If we're not in a group setting, I assume I would probably send Mr. Tyler an email just to get that discussion going, or you may have a group email already set up, and I'd kind of stick with what the guidelines are in the district.
Yeah, thank you. Very seldom does that happen, but it could,
Right.
just
Yes,
in case it does. We just want to make sure that it's covered, right?
I'm on now. In spite of what you may have been told about, there's one meeting a month, one work session, one board meeting a month. There, as you can imagine, the amount of information that comes across our desk, our emails rather, and that has to be considered as part of a board agenda or any decision that we might make. There are multiple pages of materials and items that need to be studied, that need to be read, that you need to be prepared for in terms of if you have questions and how are you going to discuss. Are you prepared for that commitment, and do you think that that kind of commitment is going to fit into your schedule? Are you going to be able to balance that out?
Yeah, I believe so. I think every week's going to be different. You know, with kids in the school system, we have ball games. We have, you know, all sorts of different things. I'm also working a full-time job along with this. Now, the good side of that is if I happen to be traveling, I've got a ton of free time in the evenings. So that could be spent going through information. I'm not exactly sure how soon I would get it and how much time I would have. But that there is a full week of evenings that I've got nothing else to do anyway. So each week is going to be different. But for the most part, yes, I believe I could fit that in.
Customarily, our board meets regularly, without called meetings or anything, always on the third week of the month. Is that on a Tuesday and Thursday for the work session and the board meeting on Thursday? So is that a week that you might be able to protect and on your calendar so that you can be sure you're available for that?
Yeah, I believe so. So in my position, there is travel involved, and in a lot of the cases, I determine when I travel. And in those cases, I would protect that week. There are some situations where it's you know, some type of a sales meeting or something that's scheduled without my ability to put in my input. So there will be some weeks that I do not determine when I travel, and in those cases, I'll just hope they don't fall on that third week. Now, also, a lot of those cases, I get home in plenty of time on Thursday. If it happens to be the third week, I might miss the work session, but be able to be there for the board meeting. So that's how it works.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Since you're a child of Baldwin County Schools and you have children in the schools, could you tell me what your vision for Baldwin County Schools are, or what your vision particularly is?
Well, I haven't really thought about the county as a whole. In coming to this and preparing for this, my thoughts have been about the District 5. So I guess
We'll just talk about what you see for District 5.
Yeah, with that in mind, we are busting at the seams, and I assume that's the case in other parts of the county as well, but subdivisions going in left and right. So my vision, I think there's definite need for growth. What that looks like, I don't know. I'd love to see another elementary school in Lillian somewhere down the road. You know, I think that would be huge for us. These are all things that are just take as we come. I'm sure there's going to be certain situations that we have to look at, but just adapting to the growth, I think that's a huge part of what I would be thinking about a lot and dealing with. That's
Okay, thank you.
We spend a lot of our time trying to adapt to the growth.
I
That's the
imagine.
truth.
Yeah.
Growth, you talk about being homegrown. How many board members up here are homegrown in Baldwin County, graduated from Baldwin County School? 2? Mike, yes, 2. See, don't really matter. You know, it's a great county.
Yep.
Love it.
That's right.
I did. I lived one time, and then when I came back, I stopped on 65, Baldwin County, and I kissed the ground. Never leave it again. Not even the ball.
Yep.
All right. So you've talked a little bit about, going to the superintendent with things that you hear, questions that have come up. So my question is, how important to you, what do you see, how important to you is the trust between the board and the superintendent?
I think it's huge. I think, like I talked about before, we need to be a unified board. No matter if I'm 100% on board with every single decision, then we need to be on board. And so that involves trust. When I go to the superintendent or any individual board member with a concern or something that's on my mind, I'm trusting that person that it ends there. And I expect them to be trusting me with the same amount of trust. So I think it's huge for sure.
Well, we do still have a few more minutes, so I'd like to give you an opportunity to share anything with us that we haven't already talked about, something that you want us to know about you or your involvement.
Yeah, so I think I've kind of covered most of it. There's, as far as community involvement, you can see on the resume, that's really what I'm all about, and I have been for years. Whether you guys decide to add me to the board or not, that's not going to change. I would love to do it from that side of the table, but I'm going to keep doing it from this side as well. Whether it's the youth soccer program or the Feed Alberta program or the different things that we've been able to be a part of, it's exciting to me. Like I said before, I grew up in this town. I love this town, and I am about this town. So.
Well, thank you for your time, and thank you for being here. We do have a board meeting to conduct and some business to take care of, so you do not have to stay if you do not want to. We will still be a little while, but I will be calling each of the candidates to let them know how we decided if you do not want to stay. So completely up to you.
Okay.
But I want to thank you for being here and thank you for your interest.
Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. And I guess with that, Mr. Tyler, if you want to come back up, we will. Are we going to? No, we have not. That's what I was going to ask you. We need to, right, okay. Well, we've got some amendments to the agenda. We need to.
Right now,
No, we've got.
do I have one?
Counselor, is it just the one agenda item? Are we adding any other business? So we're good on personnel, we're good everywhere else. Okay, so never mind, we don't have any amendments to the agenda. Yeah, that'll be taken care of on number 6. So then I guess we'll just go into regular. Thank you, sorry.
Whenever you're ready, Ms. Collins.
I am ready, whenever you are. If you want to go ahead, we'll go straight into our items of business.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Colley. Agenda item 1, District 5 board member interviews.
Oh, oops, I guess we already did that, so we'll go to number 2.
We already did that.
I move we do that.
We just roll with it. You want to do that? Okay.
By the way, all this War Eagle stuff wasn't on my agenda, so I don't know where that came from. So. Agenda item 2, approval of contract, Alabama Association of School Boards. Superintendent recommends adoption of a motion to approve the contract with Alabama Association of School Boards, AASB, for evaluation services as stipulated in the agenda exhibit.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Ms. Dawson and a second by Mr. Christenberry. Is there any discussion?
The whole thing I'd like to see is, if we're going to do any kind of feedback on anything, I think it'll be done among ourselves. Just me.
Any other questions, comments? All right. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
Motion passes.
Agenda item 3, transfer intent to transfer personnel. Superintendent recommends adoption of a motion to approve the transfer, intent to transfer of personnel as provided to board members under separate cover.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Johnson and a second by Mrs. Dawson. Is there any discussion?
This the human resource supervisor, to coordinator. You're just doing away with the supervisor position.
So we are, as part of the leapfrog study, in some of the departments, we are reconfiguring the departments. So the HR department will go from 3 supervisors to 2 coordinators and 2 supervisors.
Any other question, comment? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
Agenda item 4, administrative appointments. The superintendent recommends adoption of a motion to approve the administrative appointments as provided to board members under separate cover.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Christenberry and a second by Mrs. Dawson. Is there any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes.
And I do want to congratulate our two newest principals of our schools, Jessica Webb, principal of Foley High School, and Dr. Shannon Smith, principal of Spanish Fort High School. They've been serving as interim and doing a very nice job. And board, I appreciate you approving this recommendation on these two ladies. Thank you. Agenda item, we want me to jump to 6?
Well, I think we're going to do that.
We can do agenda item 5, which is executive.
Okay. Agenda item 5, executive session. So,
We just need a motion to approve to go into executive session to discuss defaming character and real estate.
Anybody want to give me that motion?
I make a motion, we go in executive session.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Myrick and a second by Mr. Johnson. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed?
we'll be coming back in.
And we will reconvene. Any idea how long? We'll be anywhere from.
John,
We'll,
Ray was telling you how long?
how long, Mr. Gray? 3 minutes. Knowing this board, we'll multiply that a few times. So we will try and be as quick as possible. And I guess because we have people here in the audience, Mr. Tyler, would it be all right if we move downstairs
Yes,
into
we
the?
can go
okay.
downstairs, yes.
Very good.
Mhm.
All right.